Hey, what's up, guys? Back in the lab. Excited to be here. We got our friend, the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Joshua Meek. Josh, thanks for coming out and hanging out with us tonight, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I know Ant's been wanting you on from day one. You were his first guest he wanted on here.
My man, Josh.
It makes me a little nervous. Like,
No,
what that's about.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
No, man, we're excited to have you here, man. But we want you, for people that don't know you, to get a better insight of you as a husband, as a father, and just a person in general. We've got to know you on a personal level through coaching and through youth sports, and so we know you on a different level. I think most people in our community don't even get that insight and see.
Right.
And you definitely have a position in our community that holds probably a lot of scrutiny at some points, unwarranted, but it comes with the territory. Right. But before we get into that, man, share a little bit of your story, man. Where you're from and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. It's weird sometimes to talk about yourself because when you dive into that, it's just kind of an awkward moment. But right. Yeah, I appreciate being here. Thank you for the invitation. It's good to connect and talk. But yeah, my story is, I don't. You never know if your story is unique or if it's different. I was actually born and raised in Puyallup. My parents are actually still there, as is all of my family. I'm the oldest of three kids. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And, some things that really stick out to me as part of that upbringing and childhood that's different maybe than what I watched my friends and classmates go through. My family on the extended level is, lots of divorces and different split families and things, but my parents are still married, have been married for 46 years now. Yeah. And so
goals, man, that's goals.
Born and raised in a family with two loving parents that did struggle financially. I would label them now as what I would call the working poor. Mm-hmm. And at different times they, work their tail end off to provide for us. As kids, we might not have always realized what the sacrifices they made or the what they were really struggling with. But my dad actually, right out of high school, got into the logging industry, and then in Western Washington, kind of in the 80s, that turned around very quickly and went from a job that was reliable to really inconsistent, and so he became unemployed at one point. And so I have vivid memories of those struggles as a family. Wow. But at the same time, I've never felt like my parents let us go without. I know now, again, some of the sacrifices they made to give it to us. But I am, I have a younger brother and a younger sister and really come from a pretty tight-knit family. My mom is one of 5 kids, and they're all in the Puyallup area. So I was raised with my cousins and the whole bit, and really appreciate that. I had some goals for myself early in life that I wanted to accomplish some things, and it wasn't a direct path, and had to figure some things out. I am the first person from my family to go to college. Really? And I had the full support of my parents. I'll never deny that, but it was an experience that they'd never lived through it. They didn't know what to right. do. So they were supportive, but not necessarily from a place of saying, oh, like this is what you need to do and you need to do right. this. And maybe that added to the value, because maybe that gave me an appreciation to figure some things out on my own. So as a 18-year-old kid, graduated and went to WSU, a little blind that I knew that I had a goal of what I wanted to accomplish.
That's the biggest party school in the country, isn't it?
No, that's WSU.
Well, no.
You went to UW, right?
Oh
no.
Gosh, no.
Don't
What's
say
wrong with
WSU?
you? Are you listening?
Are you listening, dude?
It's WSU. Oh, you're
You
definitely a drunk.
You know what happened? I guess the Carlo Rossi beforehand. That's when I listened.
I still got some. Oh yeah, okay. That's definitely party school.
Actually, the fall that I went to WSU, because I'm a kid of the mid-90s, and so I graduated from high school in 95 and went right there. And right before then, WSU was just coming off of the whole period of trying to be a dry campus and change their image. And I remember, because when we were going there and touring and different things, is everybody said the same thing, like, oh, that's just a party school. And I'll tell you, as a kid, I struggled with it a little bit, just because as a young kid and even in high school and things, I worked really hard, but I had strong grades and a strong academic background and everything. And so part of me felt like, I was just going to WSU to, am I going there for the right reasons? And for me, it hands down, and I had some other opportunities and did go on tours and everything. But for me, what clicked right away is that felt like home. And so I didn't really care about necessarily what the reputation was. It's probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. And yeah, there's lots of fun to have there, and certainly found my way to do it.
He's like, it's lots of fun to have there.
Well, yeah, they embrace that now, the party school, I think.
Yeah, man.
Well, I was there during, do you guys, you're much younger, so you might have been like in elementary school.
I remember the riot.
Yeah, I was there during the riot. I wasn't at the riot. I was at WSU at the riet.
I don't know about the riet.
You don't know nothing about the riot? It was. Hey, let's just say it was.
I want to hear your story of what the riot was.
All I know is that there was a fire in the streets. Yep. Some dude with one arm. Did he have one arm or one eye? So he had one arm, and he was like one of the main shit starters of it, man. And I mean, I guess the fire was so hot it burned a hole in the ground. Is this true?
Yep.
Yeah. And the riot was going. I guess it was just crazy shit that was going, man. I mean,
kind of like today, like in our world.
Yeah. Except
this was.
Except there was no. Here's the funny thing is, so we were there. That year I was living off campus, and so it was a few blocks away from where it all was in our apartment. And my mom called early in the morning after. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I look out my window, and here's the National Guard. These like things lined up all along the street, and I thought, is this a movie? What the heck is going on? And so it got labeled as a riot. Really, it was a bunch of drunks having a good time, and so they made it this, political statement about something. I'm like, no, let's keep in mind what they were burning. It started with a mattress, and then they threw a keg on the fire, and so there was definitely not. And so for the better part of a couple of weeks, they brought in, like riot police and everything else. And so I'm thinking, you might be wasting your resources, because when those guys all sober up tomorrow, they're probably not even going to remember that riot happened, besides their hands are a little burnt from throwing the keg in. But
that's hilarious.
So yeah, we were there, and I'm like, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I saw the National Guard things, and obviously it was a big deal, because they had all these pictures. You could identify who was in the right, and the poor guy with one arm,
he was just
like he was a dead giveaway. Like everyone knew who he was. So
my buddy, I didn't know the whole story, but my buddy, Josh Visker,
yeah,
Josh told me the story. He was like, yeah, he says he was at a distance, but he was, he was in there fucking mosh pitting around there. But he told me, I was at a distance, But anyways, it's kind of that's interesting to hear
the funny place about it too, and I don't know if this was connected. Obviously, I wasn't there. We were off somewhere, but the riot happened in this area of the campus. It kind of runs right through the middle of it, and the place where it was at the time used to have a Burger King. And in my generation of Pullman time, it was really super small town. And so there wasn't a lot there. And so I remember vividly when that Burger King opened, it was like really cool. Like, we have a Burger King here. But looking back now, the Burger King had a walk-up window. You couldn't go inside, but really it was a great plan for kind of drunk college kids. So you'd walk up to this window and you'd order your food, and then you'd stand out there and wait. And so part of us started joking, like, was the Burger King line taking too long, and so they had to start a riot? And it just the Burger King's not there anymore, obviously. But it was a good time of life. So I graduated in 1999, and when I went to WSU originally, I had this. What I decided I really wanted to do with my life was that I really wanted to get into business and advertising and communications, and I had these pipe dreams at the time where I thought I really wanted to live in a big city and kind of have a professional job that I was doing something creative. And my second year at WSU, have you ever been in a place in your life where you just feel like this isn't the right fit? Like I'm rolling through the punches, but this is not for me. Yeah. And so I literally one day I went to one of my classes and I got done and I walked right out of there and walked right down. These are the olden days before you did everything online, and I went and I dropped all my classes at the building.
You just walked out and just Just
yeah, you go down across the other side to the French admin building, and I went there and just dropped everything because it was still early enough in the semester. And I wasn't dropping out of school. I was just like, I want to do something else. And so I, that day, went home and just kind of did some personal reflection about, well, what do I want to do? And so I don't think I ever even called my mom and dad. I was just like,
how old were you when you did that?
It was my second year, so I would have been right about 19, 20 years old.
And your parents didn't know?
No. They always trusted me. I was a pretty trustworthy person, so they wouldn't have cared either. I mean, they might have been a little bit mad, like, what the heck are you doing? But they would have rolled with it.
The reason I bring that up is because there's some kids there's going to be people watching this right now that's not sure, that's in college.
Yeah.
And they're thinking like, fuck, man. And then they got to listen to it and then be like, fuck, Josh did it. You know?
I think it's pretty admirable, though, to figure out that's not what you want to do and make the change, because most people, even our age now, they're still doing things that they don't want to do, but they don't have the courage or the guts just to be like, I'm going to go left instead of right finally, you know?
Like you said, you were the oldest, right?
I was the oldest.
Him being the oldest is kind of like...
a lot of pressure.
Not pressure, but the thing is that it's kind of like first person in his family go to college. Mm-hmm. They don't know, like, hey, what the college life's like. Yeah. You have this big brother, first son going to college, and he's making these... But that's... You grew up like the big brother. I mean, you grew up the big brother, right? Yeah, but so do tell about that.
Yeah, I don't know the big brother concept. Yes, I am the oldest. I have a sister who's a year and a half younger than I am, so we're back-to-back ages in school. So she was one grade below me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were more like kind of the same age more than anything is kind of how it felt. But so at that moment when I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know why it took me this long to get to that place. So aside from all of that, some things in life that I really found a lot of satisfaction and joy in is I was really involved in school in kind of all of the school related things. So ASB and leadership and different clubs and organizations. And I loved it, and it was fun, and it made high school awesome. And there was, there's great opportunities, and it really helped with scholarship. I mean, there's all these things that it brought my way. And for whatever reason, I had this mental block that I didn't ever think of that could be something that I did with the rest of my life. And so, I guess I fell in the stereotype, if you will. I come from a generation when there was a lot of negative talk about, teachers don't make any money. You don't want to do that. That's you go to college and you don't make any money. And so, sadly, I think people believe that, and they start to think that, that's not for everybody. And in between graduating from high school and that time in my life, I started to get really involved I was working at summer camps, summer leadership camps, and doing different trainings and workshops and things. And I loved it. I loved working with kids. I loved sort of the experience. But again, it still hadn't really clicked for me. And so for whatever reason, and this is old school WSU, they used to have this course catalog thing, and it explained all of the majors and different things. And so I literally sat down in my room and just kind of started flipping through, like felt like I was shopping for a future. But, and then I landed and I just read the education page, and I was like, God, you're dumb. Like, why don't you really seriously consider this? And at that time, it happened pretty quickly. So actually, the same day that I dropped all those classes, I went back to that same building and re-enrolled in some different ones and changed, and it all happened from there. So I graduated in 99, and I knew the minute I got into it. So when you go to school to be a teacher, you really early on have to kind of declare if you're going to be like an elementary school teacher and work with younger kids, or an older teacher with secondary students. And if you're secondary, you also have to pick a subject area to really focus on. So I actually, I chose to really focus on English because it had the most overlap with what I had previously done. So it wasn't a complete waste of time for the classes I'd been taking for the year and a half, and kind of ran with that. At that time, I was confident in the decision, but I will tell you, I still, I really wasn't sure where that would take me. So in 99, when I graduated, I had an opportunity to do something that I really had told myself I wasn't going to do, because I was born and raised in Puyallup at a time where Puyallup was still kind of small. And for those of you not familiar with it, now it's kind of blown up, but it was really kind of small. And I told myself, like, I don't want to go back there. There's nothing there. And while my family's there, and I knew that I would always be home, that's not where I really saw myself living. But I got an opportunity to go back there and to start teaching. and some things happened pretty quickly, and it felt like home again. And now a different thing. My first teaching job was actually in the high school that I graduated from. So
Really?
Wow.
I was not quite 22 years old back in the school where I went
just
to.
a young kid going back.
How was that?
You
How
just
was that
graduated.
going right into high school level?
It was
Pretty easy transition for you?
no, not
I
at
was
all.
gonna say.
It was both good and bad. So what I always say is the good thing is I was young enough and close enough in their age, like it just kind of worked. I kind of understood them. I understood that generation because I wasn't very far removed from it. The bad part is it's hard to be kind of an adult and an authority figure when you're like 21 years old, and and then I faced that same kind of predetermination before I got there. Like I was coming out of WSU, so I know some of my students are like, oh, we got this 21-year-old guy from WSU. He's going to be a lot of fun.
Tell us some stories. Yeah,
I'll tell you my favorite story of all. This is really embarrassing, and I don't know who's listening, so it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I was just saying that. So
You're gonna have
Josh.
so my very first year of teaching, the school where I was working was we were under remodel because the district was building a new high school. And so they had all of us under remodel. And so I was teaching in this really old, dilapidated building. And I was teaching a computer class. And all of a sudden I was like, God, something smells in here. Like, what the heck is that? And then someone's smoking in here. Like, there is somebody smoking in this class. Right. And then I started to smell a little bit. And I'm like, wait, they're not smoking cigarettes. Like,
somebody was puffing in there.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I, go up and down the aisles, and I thought I'd have to really investigate. I go in the back. Here's this kid sitting at the computer, just open his thing.
Not a care in the world.
Not trying to hide it at all. And
what year was this?
It was. It would have been 1999.
Oh,
so wait a second. So did he not know that you couldn't do that?
He didn't care. He didn't care.
He was like, "What's up, man?"
Yeah. I know this might be surprising to you, but there are all sorts of people, kids that. They just don't necessarily care about the system or care that, what the consequences are. And he was super cool when I talked to him, like, hey, what are you doing? You can't do that here. And he's like, yeah, I know.
I wonder what he's doing now.
But I'll tell you, it was super. I don't
dispenser shop probably.
It's probably a millionaire. I will tell you, probably the worst part about it wasn't necessarily catching him or smelling it. It was to go walk up to the office and say, I had a student smoking marijuana in my class, and I don't know why that is. But I
don't know what to do. I don't know.
It was a great learning lesson to really understand some things. So
that's crazy. Is there any more? Is there anything else kind of like that you experienced? I'm pretty sure you can't. You probably can't tell us everything.
I can't tell all of them.
Over all the years, he's got to have some good stories.
Yeah, man. But you talked about you're going into your first year. But I mean, it seemed like did you just breeze through college like nothing, dude, or is it like?
It depends on what you're breezing through nothing means. Like, are you talking just?
But because the thing is that I want to give the audience kind of something that's kind of like. It sounds like you're a smart. We know you're a smart guy, but like, did you have was the discipline at home from let's say from elementary to high school, the discipline on the homework and all those. Did it
carry you over
things?
Through college the same way?
I mean, was it a structured deal, or you just your sister was like, hey, do your homework? I know you're the older brother, or was it the mom and dad? Because you got to remember you're the first, and you're the first in your family to go to college, so you just seem like you got your fucking doctorate, and that's fucking huge, man. To me, it is, You're
the smartest guy we know.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And I said earlier, you must not know a lot of people then. But no, I'm kind of weird in that way, I guess, I'm that kid who my parents didn't have to chase that down in me. So I didn't have... It wasn't that I didn't have structure, because my parents did have rules and expectations, and I know now kind of the lessons they taught me in other ways. But I wasn't the kid that had to be preached after to do my homework and do things. Now, I had other areas where I, kind of was, I had a mouth on me. Like, I was super mouthy with my parents, and I'd argue with them all the time. And I kind of always had this arrogance, like I was smarter than they were, or they didn't know what they were talking about. But so the school stuff, I guess, did it come naturally? I guess somewhat, because it, I knew what to do to do the stuff. The place that really bit me in the rear was when I got to college. they pile the work on you. I mean, they try and break you. I think that's part of the experience, is just to try and put you through the ringer. And I will never forget the day I walked into my first English 101 class, and, they give you the syllabus of what books to go buy and everything. And they said, you need to, here's the 7 books you need to go buy for this semester. And I thought, 7 books? What, are we donating them to other people? Or what are we going to, we're not reading 7 books in here. I'm not reading 7 books. I'll tell you that right now.
Books, right?
Well, then I didn't know that. So that class was on a Tuesday, Thursday. And so we saw them only twice a week. And the guy said, okay, well, I need you to read this by the next class. I'm like, the whole book? Because in my experience up to that point in school was, read a few pages, read a chapter. We're going to talk about it. We'll watch the video. It was really kind of letting along. And then it was all of a sudden like, bam, you got to do this. And so I fell on my face a few times before I had that full success. But I think the best lesson probably that I learned wasn't, so my parents didn't have to necessarily get after me about doing the schoolwork. And you said, was it my sister harping me? No, I'm the smart one, remember? So I had to get after her. But no, my lesson was more that my parents taught this from a young age, and they had a parenting philosophy that if you start something, you finish it, and you don't quit, and you don't get to just throw in the towel because it gets hard or it gets uncomfortable. And that was the way even if we played a sport, like we might not have to play the next year, but we were going to finish that season, even if you were miserable. So I guess I had that grit and perseverance from a young age that this is what the right thing to do is. Right. And so when I found myself in those places where it's like, oh God, I don't want to do this. And I'll be honest with you. And I don't know what other, colleges are like, because I only had my own experience to talk about, but there's a lot of distractions and reasons of a lot more fun things to do than read those 7 books. Yeah. And, I look back on my college experience, and I was there during a riot. I was there during the Cougars' first trip to the Rose Bowl in 68 years. I was there in a Ryan Leaf lived 2 apartments down from me. I mean, so I was there in some really cool times to be a Cougar.
You were by Ryan Leaf, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Ryan Leaf experience. That guy was fucking wild. I heard stories about that guy.
Yeah, there's lots of stories.
He's still wild, man.
But so I was there at a really good time, and so there's lots of reasons to find everything else to do besides the school thing. But I don't know why my ability to focus has just kind of been there. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I often found myself, really backing myself into a corner to have a lot to do at the last minute because all this was due. And, but I knew I wanted to get somewhere. So, it just happened. I know now, having my own children, that, not every person's wired the same way. And I've got kind of 3 kids that are all 3 very different. I know you guys all have multiple kids, and you get it too. Yeah. Every kid is a unique human. And as a kid, I honestly remember thinking, like, what's wrong with my sister and brother? Like, they should have just stopped while they were ahead. Like, why did they have these kids? And, and now I just get it. It doesn't, sometimes I don't know that it really matters about the parenting. It's just, kids are going to be their own person. And your job as parent is to help corral that, to embrace it, to find ways to positively, reflect that spirit into really. And so it did. I won't say it came naturally, because I don't want to mistake that coming naturally means that I didn't have to work for things.
Right.
I just didn't necessarily have the struggles of, what a lot of people do, of being academically deficient or being behind or dropping out of school. And so I did finish in 4 years, which was still to this day, I think is an accomplishment just because there was a lot of fun things going on. And when I was at WSU, there was a t-shirt that they sold actually at the bookstore that I still have it somewhere. It's buried in my closet. And my generation of Cougars will remember this shirt. It said WSU, the best 5 or 6 years of your life.
5 or 6 years of your life.
And it's a joke on a shirt. There was some mentality about that. Like, we're not in a really big hurry to get out of here. I mean, we live in the middle of nowhere. There's just weed around here. It's warm or snowy, and it's fun, and there's all these things going on. So, so I, after teaching for that 1 year, that new high school did open. And as a result, we all got, the entire staff, there were 2 schools in the district and they became 3. And so we all got moved around. And so I actually ended up teaching after that at my, what would have been my rival school growing up as a kid. I was the new teacher. So I got by seniority, I got the last pick, and it was all that was left. And I remember thinking, God, this sucks. Like this, I did not sign up for this. This is not. I do not want to go there. And not that I was really worried about being, in my rival school. It just didn't feel quite right. Like I think about it a lot now. It would be similar, like a Moses Lake kid, is teaching at Moses Lake, and all of a sudden they get transferred to Wenatchee High School, and it's like, oh God, like
Wenatchee.
And it, the school, there's a lot of similarities. I'm a Cougar, so I hate the color purple. Mm-hmm. Well, their school colors were purple, and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to go to this place. But something I've discovered in my life is sometimes those things that you least want to do or that are the most uncomfortable could somehow be the best experiences you ever have in your life.
That's true, man.
And if you embrace them and are ready to go for the ride, and it's not always comfortable. And there's lots of times when I just want to hop off and say, no, this isn't worth it. But so I landed there in that next year, and taught for several years there, and got an opportunity to really get heavily involved. I had an opportunity to be their ASB advisor and different things, some career goal things that I really wanted to accomplish. And along with that, I got elected as the president of the Washington Activity Coordinators Association, which is basically, it's a professional organization of all the ASB leadership teachers from across the state. Mm-hmm. And it's a professional group. And so got an opportunity to lead that for a few years and really meet some awesome people and continue to be involved. Even today, I still see some of them. But with that, though, came a time that I knew when I went into education that I wanted to do something bigger picture. While I wanted to teach and get that experience, I knew that I wanted to be in a leadership role of some sort. I didn't have it all figured out about exactly what that looked like. And so that ASB job actually rolled very nicely into the next step. And so when you're ready to become a principal, and you go down that work, is you have to do an internship while you're teaching, and it can be a little bit dicey. So as teaching full time, I re-enrolled and got my master's degree from UPS, which is the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma. It was just across, it's about a 20-minute drive from where I was teaching. It worked really well. But then I had to do an internship, and it was during that internship that I probably had some of the roughest life lessons of leadership and things, because the school at the time was in a really rough spot. While there were people that worked really well together, there were just some dynamics among the staff, some disagreements with the principal. I mean, there's a variety of things that kind of came out to be, but here I am, I'm interning, so I'm not a real administrator. I'm just kind of like playing.
Watching, like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. So going through that experience,
the year experience.
It's kind of a funny story. The year I did my internship, it was also the year I got married. And so Courtney and I got married that spring break.
Where did you get? I'm going to interrupt you. Where did you and your wife meet?
Well, that's a funny story. I broke the rules, but actually,
we always break rules.
The Courtney is so when I first arrived at Puyallup High School, which is the school that I ended up teaching at in the second phase of my career there. There was a bunch of new teachers that we were all kind of about the same age. We kind of clicked. We were all single. Just had an opportunity to, we kind of supported each other. You're new to the career. We didn't know. I mean, we were really young and inexperienced. Yeah. And so one of those people that I clicked really well with was a guy named Eric. And Eric is now my brother-in-law because I started dating his sister.
Hey, Eric, good job.
So I broke the bro code.
The bro code,
of dating someone's sister, but it really worked.
Did he give the approval though? You're a good dude, so I'm assuming he gave the approval.
Yeah, actually, I think, and Courtney would even agree with this. He might have given me more of the warning, like, "Are you sure you really want to get involved?"
Oh, he's like, "Man, let me tell you, man."
She and we have a. So we started dating and then got married that last year, the year I did my internship. And then right after then, we were kind of at that life place where like, okay, what's next? Because when you come out of an internship, you basically can keep teaching. A lot of people do. They make a choice that they did that, or you can seek a job. And at the time, there were some dynamics going on in Puyallup when I needed to get out. I needed to be somewhere different. I wanted to experience it because at that point, I'd been born and raised in Puyallup. I went away to go to WSU for a few years. Then I was back teaching in the same district where I went. My mom works in the school district. My Actually my little brother was one of my, he was the same age as the students I was teaching when I taught the first year. So there's just some weird, like I was ready for something else. And so I looked at, what's out there and for administrative jobs, and this job in Moses Lake was posted, and
Moses Lake.
I had not really spent a lot of time in Moses Lake altogether. I knew Moses Lake at the time as like a gas stop along I-90.
Right.
And then in a really weird way, and this is a kind of a small world of how this is connected, but my brother-in-law, Eric, he had taught for a while in Othello, and then moved back home to Puyallup, the Puyallup area, and taught. And when he lived in Othello, he became buddies with the choir teacher there. Well, that choir teacher was part of a band, and they used to perform at the Porterhouse, the Foolish Fortune. And so we used to come to Moses Lake on the weekends to go to the Porterhouse, the old Porterhouse.
The live bands?
Yeah, the live bands.
Get down there, man.
And
did you know that?
It was kind of like my vacation away from reality as we'd come to Moses Lake. So when I applied for this job, the only thing I really knew about was that there was some gas stations along the freeway and then the Porterhouse. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's more to it than that. So I did contact that choir teacher, who now actually both he and his wife work here in Moses Lake, David and Patty Holloway. And so they gave us some information about it, and I thought, what do I have to lose? I'll apply. And I really wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew that I wanted to try something different, and didn't hear about the job for a little bit, a few weeks, and then came to an interview, and some of the people that were on my interview team are still, they still work with us in the district, and so they remember the story well too. But do you ever walk out of something and you think, okay, that absolutely, like, that was good. Like, I did a good job there. Yeah. And it wasn't so much that I thought I did a good job, is that it felt like, okay, this is where I belong. Like, I like those people. Like, I could see myself working with them. And there was good laughter. There was interaction. It was fun. It was, it felt like the right place to be. And what I really liked about it was this really large interview team. I mean, I think there was probably like 14 people around this room. And I was 26 years old. And so I was young and, interested in this leadership experience. And I thought I had a lot to offer, but we've all been in that place where you're young and energetic, but you need someone to see that potential in you and to believe in you that you can do it. And they, for whatever reason, and maybe I was the least of the bad options, I don't know, but they actually, I was driving back home to go back to Puyallup where we were living, and got a call actually right at the top of Snoqualmie Pass. And so that's where my cell phone rang, and I answered the call, and it was the principal, Dave Balcom, who now still works with us, and offering me the job. And I said, well, let me get back to you. Courtney had never been to Moses Lake. Yeah. And so I called her and I said, well, I got a job. I have to make a decision if we want it. And she was super supportive and said, yeah, tell them, yeah. I'm like, well, do you want to come here? Nope, we got it. Let's go. So
that's cool.
It was really cool to have a partner in life that was ready for the ride. And she too was, I think, kind of eager to try something. And so we were, just been married a few months. And so
it's like an adventure, man.
It was an adventure. I called back and said, yeah, I'll take the job. And that was on a Tuesday. And we came back on Thursday for Courtney to see Moses Lake for the first time, and for I got introduced to the school board and different things. And so I got hired as an assistant principal at Moses Lake High School back in 2004, and really came into just a great team of people that to this day are some of my fondest memories professionally. People that were both, super passionate about working with kids, and took a lot of pride in this school and this large system that we were a part of. And at the same time, it was just a good thing. I didn't love it at first, I'll be honest with you. That I vividly remember, and Dave Balcom, who was my principal and now he might remember this day, but there was one day in the summer before school started, and I was sitting in my office and I just felt lost. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I had the job, I'm all moved in, all my stuff is there. have the computer up, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, someone going to tell me what to do, or am I just going to sit here? And so, so I went down and I said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Like, am I supposed to be doing something? Like, I can only organize the pencils and get all that done. And so Dave was great. As a true mentor, Dave, was awesome in just saying, he has a great sense of humor, but basically said, I've been waiting for you to ask. Like, but no, in all honesty, he helped kind of really dove in. One of my major things that I was involved in when I first got there was a lot of oversight of the academic side of the high school. And so did a lot of work with our counselors and things. And so one of those counselors still to this day, Mary Ann Davis, I don't know if you know who she is. She claims that she trained me how to be an administrator. So any problems, blame her. She trained me.
I trained him,
She likes to remind that. So that job really was a great start for me, not only into administration, but to really get some great experiences in a great place. And I got over kind of the feeling a little bit out of sorts, and something that people don't necessarily get. When you change school systems, especially across the state, while there's a lot of similarities, it feels very different. If there's just differences about it, and it wasn't the differences in the building thing. It's just you're kind of a stranger in this land, and the job I was hired into, I was people's supervisor, and I didn't even know who they were. I mean, they were names on a list and all these things. So kind of fast forward a few years. Dave and we had a change with the district leadership, and superintendent moved around. And so I was offered the principal position in 2009. And so became the principal, and again, just an awesome place to be and an awesome time, and feel very blessed to get that experience. And again, not sure what it all entailed, but knew that I was in with the right people. Probably one of my the moments I'm most proud of professionally actually involves that hiring is that, and I'm not saying this to rag on it. It felt good to recognize that, things were in the right place. And that, when a school has a principal opening, typically, there's a process, and they interview all these people, and, they go through and select the one that's the best, and then they get hired and things. And, so when we knew Dave was leaving, our superintendent at the time met with the entire high school staff, which is about, at that time, it was probably 120 people.
Wow.
And we got asked not to come to the meeting because potentially some of us would be candidates of, the job or whatever. And so I vividly remember, because the meeting started at like 7:30, and at like 7:37, I saw kind of out my office window all these people coming out of the meeting place. And I'm like,
that was a quick meeting.
Like, are we closing down? What's going on here? And obviously I wasn't in the room, so I don't know. I get to hear the story afterwards. But basically, the superintendent started talking about, okay, here's what the hiring process is going to look like. And somebody asked, do we have to do all that, or can we just pick who we want?
Yeah.
And she said, well, what are you thinking?
Just like that, huh?
And so they said my name, and there was, I guess, enough of an agreement that they came out of there, and I had a new job. And so it was, the cool part wasn't about, just the ease to get there. The cool part about it was, it felt like it was worth it to finally, not to finally, but to really get to a place where people saw you. They saw the job that you were doing, and they trusted you.
I think the thing that always feels so good is when your peers, you get voted in by your peers. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's such an amazing feeling where you're, I don't know. I get what you're saying.
I get exactly what you're saying. But if you know Josh, like, you're just a genuine, you're different from a lot of people. Like, when you know how Josh is, when you talk to him, he's talking to you, and he's connected with you. So whenever you come in contact with somebody, they're the center of your attention. So you know how to bring a person in. So everybody that you talk to is like, oh, this is Josh, So you're just a different type of person, to where you're a good guy, dude. Yeah. You're
Thank
a good guy,
I actually,
or you're putting on a good fake or something.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, because it's something, honestly, that I try really hard to do. And what I mean by that is, I work in a world where sometimes, people that have the same job I do or similar jobs can really come across as just not really wonderful people to interact with. Yeah. They're dry. They don't have a real sense of humor. And I think it did work well, but it's not. I don't want to misrepresent that is like kind of just an act. It's just I've always felt like the best thing I can be is to be real and to be myself. And so, I have a terrible mouth of people that know me well that, and so I sometimes get myself in trouble.
So Anthony's not the only one.
No. That's the thing is that. But one thing about Josh is that Josh is a guy, he can go around, and I don't know, it might be just where you're from. You can go around any group of people and blend in with them and say, you know what?
Well, I think
good guy, you're a bad guy.
You're right, and I think what happens, when people are genuine, you can do that because people can read through and see through people that are fake and not genuine. And I've always got the same feeling from Josh. I've told him numerous times, man, I'm glad he's in the position he's in because we need people, I think, like you, Josh, that just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, regardless of the politics, regardless of whatever. I'm just going to stand on my morals and just do what I believe is right. I think it's important, man. Yeah. So important. Yeah. But hey, let's transition a little bit. So Josh, you now are the big dog. You're the superintendent. That comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of chaos, I'm sure. But we're in this crazy time right now with COVID. So I just want to know from an insider's perspective, man, how has this all been for an educator, for a leader within that scenario? Like, how has this whole thing been for you guys?
Yeah, it like every person in our world, it's a lot of unexpected, and for so many people and so many things, just life kind of got tipped upside down overnight from going from taking a lot of things for granted and the liberties that are there to all of a sudden now, things have to be different, and here's what it looks like. So, schools in general, and you both have children that are in our system, and so this, you've watched your own kids, it went from a time where, hey, listen, for a million years that we've been knowing it, we know what school looks like. You get on the bus in the morning, you go to school, a bell rings, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, we can't go. We're locked out of that. So it takes a lot of work to try and overcome that, and it's not perfect. I don't ever mean to pretend that, but I think something that we really work hard on, and we will continue to work hard on, is that we recognize that school is more than just learning. I mean, it's more than just, math lessons and learning. And we have a greater purpose for service to kids and service to our community. And so you'll notice if you don't notice, you should know that we did some things very differently in Moses Lake. And we got kind of way out in front of saying, the virus is real and we're going to figure out how to work through that. But kids need to be in school. They need to be a part of something. They need to believe in something. And this is Moses Lake is a great place, but it's also, we have quite a few challenges. High poverty, plenty of crime, substance abuse, domestic violence. When you go right down the line, mental health issues. And so just to say that, because of the virus, everyone's going to stay home. That's really based on a lot of stereotypes that, the home environment is able to be a place where kids can learn. Yeah. So it's been a lot of work, but not anything that I regret, and I would do it all over again if we could. It's probably aged me 10 years. But I don't want to misstate that, it's all me, because we have a whole lot of people that are doing some really a lot kind of outside of their norm. Our staff will tell you I've shared this phrase quite a bit, but I've just reminded them we have to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, and that's the reality is. We have to just go with that. We don't have this all figured out, and honestly, something about being real is it's okay to say, oh my gosh, like that Google Classroom today was a mess. Like
that was a bitch. You were gonna say that.
I wasn't. I almost was, but I didn't. So just to say it and say, that sucked, and to say, tomorrow we're gonna do a better job with this, and so. So it's been a long road. But.
One thing I can't stand, because I agree, man. Like we're all going through this thing on the fly. Every day is something new. We're taking punches left and right, and we're just trying to figure this thing out. But one thing I can't stand, though, is like is the negative comments and scrutiny on via social media, like bashing like I have my own perspectives on some teachers and some things, right? Not all positive, but I don't like to see it in a time like this where we're bashing people like somebody's dropping the ball when every day you're coming into a new challenge. So that's one thing that I get frustrated with. I'm like, I know the majority of teachers and we all have the same goals
that's funny because a lot of people that have all this crazy shit that they say about you got to do this, you got to do that, and all you got to do is say, so what would you do?
Yeah, they don't know.
And they don't have a clue.
They don't have an answer.
So what would you do? Okay, it's easy to stand back from the sidelines and be what does they call it, a Monday quarterback?
Yeah,
it's easy to do that, but when it's on you to make the decisions. Yep. And these are critical conditions. These are critical situations when it comes to kids, whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but I think this 2020 itself is going to help us become a better. This Corona is going to make us become better because there's going to be things from Zoom to where there's going to be kids to when school opens all the way up. There's still going to be able to kids to still do these Zoom type of deals. So it's not going to be that kid just like,
different options.
I just couldn't make it to school. No. You got Zoom, little motherfucker. Get in there. I couldn't make it. No, you're at school now.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing in the long run.
That negativity is something else, and I don't know. I would love for us as a society to turn a corner, and I don't know where in our world it just became so kind of socially acceptable just to destroy people, and think that it's
embarrassing.
Okay. It is embarrassing, and as a person myself, that and everybody has their own opinions and perceptions. That's fine,
right?
But when it turns into just the ugliness and accusations, and social media has really done a number on a lot of things, and so there's one part about it, kind of griping and complaining about what didn't go right in your life, and or where you feel like you've been wronged, and there's lots of keyboard warriors out there that they're really strong behind the keyboard. Keyboard warriors.
Yeah,
they're really strong with posting things, but you're right. If you ask, what would you do differently, or how would you solve this, is usually the response is, well, that's what you get paid to do. And so it's like, well, yeah, then let me do that. For me, though, and I'm going to be completely vulnerable when I say this, is that to me, there's kind of a line down the middle, and half of it is kind of what I would say the business stuff, the school stuff, the complaints about that. And then there's the personal attacks.
Yeah.
And
that's the one. That's the one for
personal attacks.
Oh, all the time.
That's some bogus.
And that's the part that, what I know is what I should do is, you're supposed to just, let things go in one ear and out another, and be a strong person and know that it's not there. And, I have a quote that's on my phone that I read from time to time that, says, your perception of me is your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
And it sounds all good in theory, but let me tell you, every one of them stings like crazy. And so I don't know if everybody's that way, but, there's just some things that I often tell myself, like, I wish people knew and understood, so if you say those things and you sit and put them out there, like, I'm a person, I have a family, I have kids, and the time in my life when it probably hit the most that I was kind of blind to it. But my oldest son started to really have some issues at school, and they weren't significant issues, but he was really just, super nervous and edgy, and he finally opened up, and it killed me because, we have a pretty good relationship with our kids, and we always think, they'll tell us anything, but he shared with his school counselor, like, no, I actually, it makes me really nervous because I see these people posting all these things about my dad and this and that. Well, and he hears it, and because they hear it all the time.
Sure. And I'm sure he probably hears things from the kids too, because parents say things in front of their kids, and kids go to school and repeat things. That stuff kills me. It really gets to me.
Yeah, the funny ones for me are, there's some things I'm like, you must think you're really smart. Like, so I get comments all the time about being fat. Like, okay, I didn't need to read that on Facebook to know that. Like, if you think you're a rocket scientist because you discovered that, like, yeah. So
you're this, but this is the thing, man. Like I don't know if you know, I've chimed in sometimes, and commented back on some people on social media when I've seen shit, because you're my friend. But I think the same thing too. I think it's so disgusting when people make these personal attacks like that. Like, I just think, like, where are you as these are adults? Like, where are you as an adult to think like these things are okay? And what are you trying to accomplish by this? By demeaning somebody? Like I can't stand that stuff, man. Yeah, like what are you doing?
Or that little laughing emoji, like, oh, you think that's funny? Like,
yeah.
You know,
I can't stand that stuff,
and
man.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I can't go back in time where we lost scope of that as a society and as people. I mean, I think most people are raised in an environment or at least, you know, somebody in your life is really trying to teach you to do right by other people and to, you know, to treat people kindly to a certain extent. And not everything's perfect and hunky dory. And I'm not asking for that, but it's just that human compassion and spirit to know that you never know. You don't know what, like I can say something about you, but I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know what that's really about or what, you know, so it is, and I'm not alone in that. All sorts of people. And granted, it's been a long couple of years. And I, on a regular basis, try and remind myself, you know, it is what it is. You've got keyboard warriors and people that, and there's a Theodore Roosevelt quote that we've used a lot. It's a story, and it talks. It's a very long thing. I could try and recite it, but I won't because I'll ruin it. But basically, it talks about that. It's a speech he gave, and it's called the Man in the Arena speech, and it's a whole thing that talks about how, you know, you don't give a shit about the people from the cheap seats who they wouldn't jump in the arena with you. So they're not in there getting their ass kicked, bloodied and marred. But they'll be the first. The person who you really need to listen to is the one there fighting the battle with you. And so, again, it helps kind of ground me a little bit in knowing that. And I know, you know, we're surrounded by a lot of great people that are not only fighting the battle, but also know and recognize that, you know, there's more to all of this than just maybe what's in a newspaper article or on iFiber. You know, the other one that I take on a regular basis is just criticism around pay and, you know, compensation and things. And, you know, I get that, you know, some people have some perceptions on that, but on the other hand, it quickly turns personal about, you know, I've read about myself that, you know, you're not worth that.
Yeah.
You don't even know me. Like, you know what I'm worth. You know what I'm like, that's it. So,
it's kind of crazy. It's because, you know, we all have access to that and see those things too. And I always, it's another one of those things again. I think like why this is another adult making these are adults making these comments. I'm thinking like, these aren't very adult like.
Yeah, like, remember, I don't do social media, so I don't know nothing what's going on.
But that stuff really irks me though, man. And it bugs me because they don't know what the job entails from A to Z, you know, and that's what it's very frustrating to see. And I think on top of that too is I just know you on a personal level. I know you as a man, as a dad, as a husband, and I've even came to you with certain things, and I know that the reception I've got from you on some personal stuff. So I know him. So when I hear people, I'm just like, dude, like it pisses me off, man.
A lot of people, you got to realize that when people say these things, put themselves to where you have a family, you have kids, and like you said, your kids seen these things. So these people are saying things. What if their kids seen some things that were being scrutinized about them or just put out about them? How do they deal with that?
Yeah,
you know, then that's the thing. That I mean, I think a lot of people like the social media. I don't do it because of that, because I'll be insane. I'll be knocking at your door like, "Hey man, you said something on a post." He was like, "Well, I didn't mean that." No. That
Anthony be like, "No, explain to me again exactly what you mean."
We need to handle this.
That's funny.
It's also there's a piece of it too though that. I don't know. I don't have great advice on this one, but just that there's a whole lot of things and a whole lot of arrows you can throw my way, and I'll say, you know, thank you for the feedback, but you know, it doesn't sting. But there's a couple that really, you know, aim right for the heart. And one of the things is, and especially if I always say, like, if people really knew me, and I, you know, Derek, you know this because we, you know, had some conversations over the years and different things, but I actually spend a lot in what makes me drive to do what I do is from a place of care for kids. And so when someone makes that accusation, like, oh, you don't care, you're just, you know, lazy and not doing anything, it's like, no, so those are like those extra stinging, and you know, it doesn't do any good to really argue with them because you're just you know, you're arguing with the ignorant. And so it doesn't, you're just chasing it around. And I notice and I appreciate from time to time people who do try and, set the record straight. And I'm not, naive enough to believe that people aren't, we all have people that think highly of us and not so highly, and, that are fond and not so fond. And I know that there's been conflicts with people that I don't necessarily, I don't expect any different, I guess, from some of those outcomes. But it does feel good sometimes to see when some people have your back. And
well, hey, tell us who they are, dude. Like
who has my back, or who to go after?
No. Tell us who has your back. It's kind of like, I know that these people, like, they got my back. I appreciate them. Like, who are these people? If you feel
well, you got one tough guy right there.
Yeah. It's I tend to have some of the. And it's not necessarily a large group, because I think a lot of people, they want to stay away from all the drama too. It's like, I don't want to get myself involved in all this, and I respect that. But obviously, Derek, you, your wife, your mom, from time to time have really, tried to set the record straight. I have, obviously staff members that I've worked with that, try and be corrective in what's stated. I often have to kind of help my wife to not respond, because that's a tough one.
I bet.
We recently, I shared this with you before we start talking, but my whole family had the coronavirus back in November, and unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it's like, I don't want this story, but the news media picked it up as a story to run, and so they had these pictures they robbed off of my Facebook and different things. And
oh yeah, that great investigative reporting.
It's like so it just, but so when the negative comments came and everything, and I mean, there were hateful people. Like, there are actually people out there saying things like, well, he's overweight, so what do you expect? Like, maybe it's not worth living anyway. Just some horrible. I'm like, I don't know how you think this is in any way, shape, okay, but. And then, for my wife especially, when you start to, she's got the mama bear in her. And so when you start to poke around, like, so we, and I know both of you through sports. And so my oldest son, played basketball with your kids, and he plays baseball in Othello. And so there's been people who chime into that conversation and give us some strong opinion about what that's about, or how we think of, that we're not true to Moses Lake. And so you don't even have the full story. And if you ever want to ask me, just ask. I'll explain to you.
And guess what? I know how true Moses Lake can be to you sometimes, and it's not very true. So do what's best for your kids.
Well, and we all as parents, I mean, I know you've had to do it with your boys, and you've had to do it with yours. You reach a point where you see something and you're like, right now, in this moment, in this place in time, I need to make this decision.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when you do those, you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know if it's a good decision or a bad decision. And parenting doesn't come with a manual.
Yeah.
And so you do what you think is right. And sometimes you fail miserably, and you get back in there and you try it again. And other times you think, yeah, that was a damn good decision I made. That was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, and I don't care who wants to argue with me about it. Come talk to me. Give me a call. Us making a decision for my son to be a part of a baseball program in Othello was one of the best life-changing moments for him in the game that he loves. Yeah. And so I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with being true to Moses Lake or not true to Moses Lake. My kids will go to Moses Lake High School, and they're in our school system. And it's not that I don't believe in it, but you can believe in something and also see that there's a different place or option or solution for your child at that time. So, we have to, you have to be your kid's best advocate. You have to have their back. You have to, now I'm not saying be soft on them and to, I don't believe in the whole trophy generation for everybody. I'm just going record saying that.
But you also have to find the best opportunity for your kid.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and I've lived through different scenarios. Obviously I have 4 boys, but where I was true to Moses Lake, where I was like, Anthony and I were building this thing. We thought like, this is really cool. We see like building something that's going to put Moses Lake on the map, is going to make him known for these things, great group of kids. And I even didn't let one of my kids go play outside of Moses Lake, because like, no, we're loyal here, man. This is what we have. We're building for when we get to high school, man. No, we're not going to do that. And this situation, it turned and burned me. It turned on me. And then I had other kids on the team that went and played in other teams, right? So, and the whole time I'm trying to teach this loyalty and like, hey, and anyways, long story short, it didn't work out. And I missed out on a lot of opportunities, and my son missed out on opportunities, which probably could have helped him flourish or see things differently. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to be able to cut all ties and be like, hey, this is what's best for my kid to succeed and at least play. Like our kids, I know how sports are so sports are political.
This question wasn't on the
sports
so
are
I'm gonna
political.
bring this up. All right.
Great.
So now your kid went and played at Othello, right?
Yep.
And Othello, there's a lot of Mexican kids over there. There's a lot of Mexican kids that play on baseball.
They're probably all Mexican.
Yeah. Did you? Was not enough for you because you're everywhere. That's what type of dude you are. Was it a culture? Was there a lot of Mexican kids? Was it a culture shock, or how was it?
So, in full disclosure, I have 3 boys. They're 14, 12, and 8. All 3 of them now play in Othello. Not my oldest is done now. They've moved on to a different team because the team aged out. But they've all played in Othello, and not their last year, but all 3 of them have been on a team with. They are the lone white child on the team, and so
that is so good
roster
for the
says
kids.
like Martinez, Garza, Ozuna, Meek, and then it's like who's the odd one out? And so is it culture shock? Maybe not. I guess I don't.
No, it's not a culture shock if it doesn't shock you, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, you see all these blacks all over. Oh my God,
Josh, we had one time.
You just flow right in there, dude.
I like people, so
we had one time. I was going to interrupt a little bit. We had one time with our oldest boys basketball group, and we were like the Bad News Bears initially in basketball, but we picked up a kid that he was a white kid, and I just remember one time that the mom. A great family, great kid, came up to us, and she's like, I'm really glad that we made the decision to let our son play with these boys. We would have hung out with this whole family, this environment of we would have had Mexicans and blacks on this team. Never would have. And it's just something that really stood with me. This is a great family, but just to be honest about it too, like I'm glad I did this. My son is going to be a better kid for this. Right. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about like where we are as a society right now, just in general, and I'll tell you, there's, you hear and you read and you really observe, and I'm very cognizant of, concept of things like white privilege and all those things. And I'll tell you, it's a really unique place to be in. And I'm not asking for pity. I'm just saying like to be a middle class white male and how that, what people's assumptions they make about you. Are they, whether it's a joke they tell, whether it's a comment they make that somehow they think that because I look this way or whatever, that I'm kind of in the same line of thinking of them. And I honestly, going right down the list, most all of my closest friends are people of color of some sort. And and maybe it's, I guess I didn't become friends with them other than they were good people and we hit it off and we were, kind of cool with each other. And so I have, I think it's part of who I am, but also, it's embarrassing sometimes to think that that people, believe, just like any group is there's no one group of people that are all the same or like-minded. Yeah. And so when people make assumptions, it's all over the board. And I have great, they know it. If they were watching right now, they might be, but several Mexican families that are, some of them even call us their token white kid, but I'll take it because enchiladas are good. I'm not gonna lie. So no. But more than that, right. What it's really about? It's not about food. It's about real relationships with people that care, that matter, and those are the people that they have your back when push comes to shove.
Meeks, a lot of people are afraid. Even black people are afraid to journey out and get white friends. Sure. And then it's like you got a lot of Hispanic people are scared to go out and get black friends. Yeah. And it's weird because a lot of people see stereotypes that are put out there. It's kind of like, this is the way that they are, And a lot of people are terrified when they get around a whole bunch, black people. A black guy may get around a whole bunch of white people like, oh no, and he's thinking the worst. He's thinking fucking Confederacy and all that, and you got a white guy that gets around all these black. Oh shit! But we're all the same. We're basically we all just want. The
we
same
just got to give the opportunity.
Just respect and appreciate and have a good time, and especially if we're drinking, laughing, memories, right?
Yeah. I often wonder, like, where do you think that, like, where does that fear come from? Like, where did it come from that, like, I don't.
It comes from the ancestors because they were fucking nuts. No, for real. Like, that's the thing is like your dad tells you something like, it was this time when I was here, and let me tell you, this colored boy, listen, this is what he did. He stole my lunch pail and he hurt me, right? And then the black guys, well, let me tell you like this.
I think
watch out for him.
That's some of it. I think a lot of what it is though is what we visually see on TV. I think a lot of it is a perception that's portrayed. Right. On all sides, I think so.
Absolutely.
You talked about sports, so I want to talk about sports during COVID right now, because I know the high school, especially seniors, man, they feel horribly for these guys. So how important do you feel the sports is during this whole pandemic?
Hugely important, and if you saw some of the work we have going on behind the scenes, we've again tried to be the loudest voice and advocate to really wave a flag and saying this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And please let me correct that. I'm not saying sports are important, that we need to win trophies and championships and be out there for league titles and all those things. That's not what it's really about. I think you go right down the line, and some of the things that our kids need the most right now can be delivered through sports, through band, through choir, all those things. Connection. Yeah, interaction, an opportunity to move around, to play a game, to perform, to create, and so I actually think when you go down the line of all of the things that have been the most kind of catastrophic in life lost to students right now, I would put that loss of opportunity for athletics and activities towards the top of that list.
Yeah,
I can, not to minimize it because it's hard to do, but we can look at ways to teach math remotely, or to, get you caught back up in becoming skill deficient in your writing. Mm-hmm. But let's be real. And you've seen it. Your older boys have gone through, and this is those memories made, connections with people, families. And so it's really disappointing. And we've got some things, obviously both continuing to push to get kids back into activities. We've started this week. We launched a set of middle school intramural things to just get kids active. And it's not necessarily booming, but for the first time ever, we started with middle school swimming, and we've got 53 kids in the pool swimming with each other. And it's like, you know what? That's really good. That's awesome to get them. Yeah. And so, I think sometimes people misunderstand maybe the value of athletics, and I get so tired of hearing, it's not all about the sports. Yeah, I agree, it's not all about the sports, but you know what? There's a lot there that's not about like the basketball in their hand or the baseball bat. There's a lot more going on there, and
there's so much, man.
And the other thing that I'll tell you that we take very seriously. Actually, we were just working on this yesterday. Is here's the reality of sports right now is. Some kids, they haven't been interrupted as much because they play club baseball. They're in a club volleyball team. Their parents have the resources to take them to Phoenix to do this or to Boise to do that. The kids that are struggling the most with it is the those that can't afford that to do it. And so I think that's part of our responsibility as a K-12 public school is to give people opportunities that may not get them somewhere else. And that doesn't mean that, it just becomes kind of a charity, but what it means is I think, those things exist in our school systems as an extension of learning where learning's happening in a different way. And so on top of it being catastrophic for just the loss of opportunity, I think it's amplified for those that are, live in poverty or that don't have an opportunity to do that. And so, honestly, my own kids, we've been able to keep things going. Right. Maybe not exactly what we want to be doing, but there's been an opportunity to keep that going. And I don't let that cloud my judgment because I all kids need to have a chance to plug into something that they want to be a part of, regardless if, it's not a money thing. And where youth sports especially ever became about money, it's bad. It's wrong.
How do you, so I know for me personally, I want to talk a little bit about sports, school, not being together, the mental health side just for a second, because I know I'm certain it's affecting kids. I'm almost certain it's affecting some of the teachers too, because this is what they love to do. Because I know for me personally, I had a bout with, I think, a little bit of depression early, like in the springtime when we're typically doing our run in AAU basketball, but mentally I just was not right. And I got to thinking about after the fact, man, it was all the activities I was always doing. Now I stopped and was doing nothing. We weren't doing the practices 2 or 3 nights a week. We weren't doing tournaments 2 weekends, 3 weekends a month. And I look back at it and I think it was really mentally affected me in a negative way for a period of time. So have the school district seen, like an uptick in mental health issues that you guys are aware of? And
Absolutely. A few board meetings ago, we had a presentation by a couple of local mental health care providers, counselors in our community, and they shared that same sentiment. They're seeing just a huge increase in it. And when I talk about a huge increase in it, what is it? A huge increase in suicidal ideation to think about how can I escape this pain that's there. A huge intake in kids with deeply impacted anxiety, a huge impact with kids reaching out and saying I don't know where to go, like I'm kind of lost. And so it's really significant, and I think that's one of the other kind of collateral damage things about this whole time right now is that if we don't recognize that and deal with it, we've got bigger issues than just a virus. And that's part of what, and I'm not meaning that to sound ignorant or to say that I'm a anti-masker or that I'm one of those, crazy people who thinks that, the coronavirus is someone's opportunity.
Well, at some point, what is
worse
at some point?
And, think about it this way too. And this is something that I didn't really always think about, but of lately I've done a lot of personal reflection on it is, we're 3 adult men and you have some life experiences, and whether this has been super easy for you or super hard on you, you have some life experiences in your bag to call on to know that, there's going to be a tomorrow and there's going to be a time when we can go back to, being at friend's house or having that barbecue or, playing a game of basketball. If you think about kids, some of them don't have those life experiences to call upon. And so, when you talk about that loss of hope or that loss of looking out in the future, not only, are they not able to do it, but they don't have any necessarily experiences to live through that. And so, I think we collectively as adults owe it to ourselves and to our kids and to our community to do everything we possibly can to figure out ways to get over that hurdle. The virus isn't going away right now. We've got to get it figured out. We've got to get it figured out how we can do things safely and not just be flippant and ignore it and say, oh no, that's not real, or we're just gonna do this. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to get to the place where we see that these things make a difference, and we've got to figure out how to make it happen.
That's true, man. That's so true.
So, hey, I want to ask you a tough question. As the superintendent, where do you feel like our school district lacks the most, or where we need to improve the most to capture the kids that we're losing?
Sure.
We had a friend of ours on, Eddie Martinez, a month or so ago, and he's a teacher over in Mattawa. Yep. But he talked about a lot of the programs they do over there, and I loved talking with him because he's fired up and loves what he's doing. Yeah. It's refreshing to hear. But anyways, I'm just curious, what do you think we need to improve on most here to help our kids?
So that's a $1 million question, but right. I will say that I think if I could fast forward the tape and have us be in a place as a district in a spot where I really would like us to be, in this, I'm going to focus a lot more on the high school side of things. but you can see how it filters down into earlier learning experiences. But here's the deal. Schools are primarily still designed to enter kids into a world that no longer exists. And, schools, if you look at, and you've seen these memes on Facebook, ignore the comments, but look at the memes of showing what a schoolhouse looked like in 1880 and what it looks like today.
Oh, it's the same.
And they're not that much different.
It's the same.
Kids in rows and different things. And I'm not doing that as a condemnation of, obviously a system that I'm responsible for leading, because it is what it is. However, I think what's really missing is that we've somehow, in this world of really complex individual humans, we've tried to make everything kind of the same fit for everybody. Like this is what happens, and then you go to do this, and you go to this grade. Even you go right down to the basic confines. Like, have you ever wondered, like, why do we say kindergartners are 5 and first graders are 6? Because somebody will do that. Like, what if your 7-year-old is just finally ready to learn at the thing? And so we've built everything so time bound, and it's just messy. And so at the secondary level, what we really, life doesn't happen in periods or by subjects. And there has been I think something that maybe plagues our community a little bit that I want to break away from and to help our kids see is that there's some belief that the only way that you can have success is to leave Moses Lake, to get out there and leave Moses Hole, or whatever you want to call it. And, that's a real tragedy for two things. One is what a more demoralizing thing to send a message to our youth that the only way you can have success is to get out of this place where, we've all chose to raise our kids and families. So there's that problem of it.
Well put.
But the other part of it is there are great opportunities here locally. And then there's great opportunities out in the world beyond here too. And so it's such an individual need and desire that I think when we try and put all of the eggs in one basket, or say that this is the path for success. A few years ago, there was a big movement, and it still continues to a lot of it, a big movement kind of like that all kids should really go to college. And, for me as an individual, college worked really well in my life pathway. It worked. College isn't for everybody. I can tell you that right now. And I have a younger brother and a sister that college was not for them. Does that mean that they're not successful or not smart or not able to do things? Absolutely not. And so I think where I think the thing that plagues us the most is that in somehow in an attempt to be efficient and to do what the word I hate the most is what's fair, is that it's kind of become this kind of one size thing. And there's been lots of efforts in my career, in our career, where there's this like kind of personalize the school experience. But do you know what that normally looks like? It normally looks like pick this class to take or this class to take. They're basically the same, but we're just calling them different. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about either. It has to be vastly different. And I won't say that as emphatically. I rarely, if ever, meet educators who go into the field to not have kids be successful. Yeah, right. That's what drives most everybody. But in some ways, when it kind of is a system that just isn't necessarily pushing it along like you want, I think people fall into a habit of least resistance and might resort back to some belief systems or behaviors that they don't. Another thing, I hate to admit it this way, but I think a lot of times one of the places where schools are the most challenged is most people who work in schools, school worked really well for. Okay. And so they have this way of seeing the world. It's like, well, you should just sit there and be quiet and do your work. And that's not everybody. Don't get me wrong. And there's people who are very skilled at handling all sorts of different learners. But, with every kid being individual and unique, a lot of the kids we serve in schools, school doesn't work well for them. And so it's not that
nobody talks about. I never even thought about that, but that's so true.
We need to talk more then, because it is definitely something that kind of plagues the system. And it comes right down from how you see the world, values, how you're motivated. I mean, there's $1 million question. Like, for people that school works well for, a lot of them are grade driven. Like, say to you, like, Derek, you're going to get 10 points off that assignment if you don't turn it in on time. Yeah. So for someone who school works for, they're going to really they're going to take some, oh my God, I got to get that done. For others, they think 10 points, heck, That's 10 more than I had yesterday. So, they have no care about that. And it's not that the person's not smart, or that they just, their source of motivation is differently. So, there's so much there that it's an exciting thing to get to be a part of. It's also a little bit of an overwhelming thing, because we don't, in schools and in public education or education in general, we don't just get to press pause and say, okay, we're going to redesign everything and start all over. And I would bet you that if I brought 10 teachers into this room, we could have a similar conversation. We're going to start spewing off lots of different things. But school keeps going. And so you don't necessarily get the opportunity to press pause and to start over. And so you tend to do kind of things along the way. And Eddie probably shared, different programs and initiatives and ways they're connecting. And those are all from people's heart of good things. Like, hey, we're going to try this. And we
were surprised by some of the things they were doing. And we were like, wow, why don't we have more? My personal opinion, I feel like we've taken away the creativity of a lot of kids over time.
And like, listen to you talk, it's always easy to speculate what's going easy. This is the way I think it should be done. But it's like, there's this thing, it's been going on for hundreds of years. This is the platform. It's easy to do. If we're going to change some of these things, how do we do it? And what's the format of doing it,
And there's been a ton of effort from a government standpoint, whether it's federal government or state government, to improve schools through policy, through regulation. And I can tell you there probably isn't a worse way to really prompt change than to do that, because you saw that, and some of your kids went through a generation where we were so focused on test scores and kids meeting standards and all those things. And those are all important, don't get me wrong. But to draw a line in the sand and say all kids have to be at this place in the line, like, at the same time, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Not only is it not realistic, but it's really, it is damaging to those that might be really close, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Well, if you put a wall right in front of their face and say, you don't graduate this year because you're not at this place, what message does that send? I mean, in your job, if you're not good at something today, do you want an opportunity to improve at it and get better tomorrow? Yeah, you're gonna keep working at it. But we somehow collectively as a country have said, if we're going to fix American education, here's what we've got to do. And, I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, and that education kind of comes in these waves. And so you'll be happy when you talk about the creativity. There's a lot going on right now, which I applaud. And our district has taken a very active role with younger learners, getting kindergarten back to creative play and have an opportunity to be creative and explore. And if you walked into a kindergarten classroom today, you would leave with kind of that warm, touchy feeling, because it's like, oh my God, that's what kids really need.
That's the way it should be.
They got an opportunity. And I heard a story the other day that was super funny. Is part of that creative play is an intentional plan for kids to get into it and to be creative. And the teacher was telling a story about some kids that were playing, and they had a little station going, and they were playing school. And one of the 5-year-old girls was like, "Okay, boys and girls, you need to put your mask on. You need to stand 6 feet apart." And she's correcting them all. And so there is a huge movement to kind of bring that back into school.
I think it's huge.
And it's not about, for a long time, the whole focus was on, reading and math, and we need to get all of our kids reading by a certain standpoint. Well, the power of the brain and the ability to create, to think critically, those things far outweigh, reading and bringing reading along. There's some developmentally appropriate time to do that. And that doesn't necessarily mean we got to hit kids right out of the chute into kindergarten to do that. And so I'm really proud of, especially if you walked into some of those classes, to see that. And, that's awesome. And I think sometimes as parents, we might think, well, what are they doing?
Where are my tax dollars going?
Where are my tax dollars going? Why are there no desks in this classroom? Like, where do the kids sit? Well, they sit at the PlayStation.
Josh, like in a lot of other countries, they talk about like Japan, right? They say that when those kids are about that age, it teaches, it's just communicating, with one another, how to bond with the person, how to talk to a person.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've gone to my kids, I go have lunch with them sometimes, and I'm just baffled. I'm just going to tell you, Josh, I'm baffled. I go to lunch with these kids, and they have to sit only with their classroom.
I was on some positive stuff.
I know, but I don't know. I was just saying. So I don't know if this is. I'm just saying. This came to my head right now. I haven't been to school for a year, right? But I go to lunch. Last year, my third grader at the time, think he's third grade. And all the kids have to sit together. They have to sit together with their own class, And I'm thinking like, wait a second. I'm like, isn't this like your time to communicate and mingle and learn how to talk and see other friends? And my kid's like, no, we can't. I'm like, you can't go sit with, that's your buddy. No, I can't. And I'm like, why do they do that? Right. And then you have to be quiet. You can't talk. I'm like,
this is really bothering him because he's not letting me get word in.
It's because I think we got to have the moments in our day where we can just communicate and learn how to communicate and talk.
It's communication.
We've got to have moments in the day where it's okay to be messy too. I mean, I think that's. Yeah. I honestly think that comes from a place of where the desire for structure and order outweighs what we kind of know about the human spirit. And we all have all boys, and so
definitely.
I don't know about your kids, but mine can't sit still that long to be best behaved, and so sometimes they got to just move, and so definitely it's one of those things that maybe is good in intention, but it does your experience that you share. Unfortunately, we hear from time to time, and
it's a different time, right? We grew up in a different time, so obviously my perception is...
I had an experience. I'll tell this story, and I won't identify who, but I had an experience. I was in an elementary school cafeteria, kind of seeing the same thing, and here's this teacher's class and this teacher's class, and I was standing kind of back away from the table, and all of a sudden, one of the staff members there just takes this whistle.
They do the weirdest stuff, dude.
And I'm like, what the heck? Like, is the mountain blow, or what do we got going on here? Like, this is crazy. Like, why are we blowing the whistle? And it was like tray cleanup time, and I thought, holy crap, like this is not...
It's like militarized, dude.
First of all, my ear was ringing, and I watched the kids, and what's kind of sad is they were just
numb to it, right?
Yeah, they're kind of numb to it.
They know what to do.
Time to put the tray away.
Yeah, but like robots. Yeah. And I remember when I was lunchtime recess, grade school, was like the longest recess we had. Oh, yeah. So you would eat as fast as you can, and you get outside and run around for 30, 40 minutes, right? Yeah. Nowadays, it's like, I'm like, it's my son. I'm like, hey, let's hurry up. Let's go and play some basketball, go run around. He's like, oh, we can't. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you can't? He's like, we got to wait till we have like 10 more minutes. You're done with this lunch. I'm like, they've even limited that too. I'm like, this is getting out of hand.
And here's another place, and I'm not making excuses for it because it's always good to kind of dissect what's not working well. But not only has the desire for rule and structure, but just take school lunch as an example. Everything has gotten to a place where it's so regulated that it's not even like I just having this conversation with my own kids the other day. So, school lunch became, in an effort to make America's youth more healthy. Mm-hmm. They put all these parameters in and what needs to be served in a school lunch. Well, in a lot of ways, it's the most awful tasting things on the planet. And that's no offense. And our cooks, I'll tell you, if you got a chance to talk with them, it kills them sometimes because they want to make good food. I mean, they take care of people and they work hard. And so it's like, oh yeah, here's the pizza made with whole wheat crust and the non-sugar tomato sauce on the pizza. This doesn't taste. This looks like cardboard and a tomato plopped on the top. And so we've gotten as a country so worried about the regulations and we as a school people have said it all along. It's like, okay, that's great. So during school lunch, you have to eat this. But then when the bell rings, you can walk by Frank's Market and buy, 3 bags of Doritos and a Mountain Dew and have a nice night. It just doesn't. So maybe those aren't the things that we should be regulating from a government standpoint.
Probably educating somewhere else, right? Well, different ways and choices. We all should get choices. Like, come on now.
I mean, if you really want to teach kids a life skill, there is something to be said about, the world has all sorts of, in our world, there's healthy food, not so healthy food. And, to just put them in a bubble and say, we're only going to serve you the healthy food. And, what are you really teaching them? And there's been a movement and for most of our schools, it's the case now with the exception of our high school and a little bit at the middle school is that, all pop machines have been removed from schools because it's an unhealthy habit. And, and so, it's just it's an interesting
I remember growing up, dude, like food was good, bro. I think that's the only reason why I went to school, bro.
Well, and what's the thing? If you
good ass fucking food.
Yeah, and if you restrict something so much, what do you normally do when you restrict it? You go find a way to get it. It's like, come on, man, just let us choose, man.
Well, I think we should. If you look back in our country's history, when alcohol was illegal, look what happened to really, you go crazy. Like Are we going to raise a generation where they're looking for real pizza and it's going to like have a riot to get some?
Give me the shit, man.
Hey, Josh, so I got a question for you. As a superintendent, man, you're like the dictator, man. What you say goes. You have no boss. You're the man. Is that true, man? Like how the perception is, I think, that you are the be all end all, you know? How does that work?
Yeah, it's not true.
So wait, you're not to blame.
Right
you're not to blame for everything, then?
No. You know, there's no doubt that there's a lot of authority and responsibility and the ability to take into action. So ultimately, in our state and in most of the states in our country, the superintendent is hired by the school board. And so in Washington is one of those states. And so we all as a community elect 5 school board members, and they hire one person. They hire and potentially fire the superintendent. So their sole responsibility. So, you know, who's my boss? The school board. You know, they are the people that ultimately would decide if I'm incompetent or whatever the piece is. So no, there's no just vacancy of any sort of responsibility or supervision. And then ultimately it's designed to be, when you go way back in our country's history, it's designed to be that the board members, and who are they accountable to? They're accountable to the taxpayers. And so that's the kind of the logic behind it. So then as beneath, under my responsibility, I guess, is the entire district staff. So we employ about 1,200 people.
Wow.
And so, obviously there's lots of different, departments and schools and jobs and responsibilities. And so, and so all of those people in some way or in order, kind of report to somebody else who then, ultimately it all kind of, well, I don't, this isn't really appropriate for me to say, but you said it. So I don't know if it's that shit flows downhill or uphill, but one of the two is that ultimately someone at the end of the day, that's where the responsibility stops. Our board primarily focuses on policies and rules and and our job is doing it. So I am the, in a business term, I'm considered like the CEO of our school district. And so my job is to, run the day-to-day operations of the school. And we're, people may not know this about Moses Lake, but we're actually, there are 295 school districts in our state, which is crazy to think about. Wow. That there's that many. And they range from, I think the smallest district has 7 students in it, a whole school district with 7 kids, to Seattle.
That's not a district.
Yeah, it is. I often think about what is that,
there's going to be another name for that.
It's crazy, but we're actually on the, we're in about the upper third of school district size. So while Moses Lake is a smaller community, we have this really large school district. Right. So, we have just under right around 9,000 kids, wow. Give or take, depending on a year. This year we're down a little bit with COVID and people making some other educational choices. But so you can imagine with 9,000 kids and 1,200 employees and serving an attendance area that's 400 square miles and 40,000 people, there's a lot of complexity to that. So when you ask the question, is it, can you just do whatever, yeah, if you're crazy and you want to get ran out of somewhere, I mean, and there's a good, I think in theory, there's a good check and balance, and there's ways to really, to make sure. And, I know that a lot of people, even maybe people that work within our system, I feel like the job of a superintendent is probably really misunderstood in a lot of ways. I
think so.
I think so. Today someone I think said to me, "You need to get off your throne." And I thought, my throne? This chair's not even comfortable. I don't know about a throne, but there's just a lot. There's a lot there, and I know a lot of people get and understand that, but there's also just a none of it is like easy cut and dry answers. It's not like, we're not a manufacturing factory that we crank out, widgets. And so there's just, it's messy. But it's what I love about it too.
Yeah.
So
that's what you love about it?
You got to put out fires every day, I'm sure.
No, some days they're full out like forest fires, and some days, and it's not all. That's the other thing is I think sometimes we forget to find the good in stuff.
Yeah.
And while there's lots of challenges in our schools, in our community, there's also a lot of really awesome things. And I'll say it again and again. So when my wife and I moved here in 2004, I didn't necessarily know that Moses Lake was a long-term place. And I In fact, if someone would have asked me, I would have said, no, I'm just going there to, get some experience and then maybe find something else. In fact, I remember vividly people asking like, oh, or, are you going to stay 2 years and then leave? Because that, there are people that do that. And hands down, the number one thing that I say again and again that keeps us here is there's good people. And even the nasty comments and things, it's like, okay, there's a good person buried below that. Maybe not a version I'm liking right at this moment, and I want to punch you in your throat, but there's definitely good people. And I've and when I look back at kind of just whether they're people that have come through our system and both what they've accomplished, what they've overcome, what they've bound together to do in times of crisis or need. I mean, it's what makes it a really unique place. And having come from both a larger community, but also a different part of the state, I think sometimes people, they might get down on Moses Lake and they're like, oh, it's Moses Hole. Go live somewhere else for a while, then come back and let me know how that all works. Because first of all, every community has its challenges. Yeah. Right. Secondly, with it comes a whole different set of issues. And so you might, and I shared with you, I would love to have a place to buy men's clothes in Moses Lake besides Walmart. Yeah. But I'm not going to trade that off for some of the other things that we have and we get an opportunity to do in our community. And so I think it's really easy to take for granted what you have until you experience it from someplace else. And Moses Lake, I'm not saying it's perfect or that it's for everybody. And, some people thrive in different environments better than others, but that doesn't mean we should all be, kind of ashamed or embarrassed or, whatever we're thinking. So, yeah.
So how do you, we talk a lot about work, but how do you balance your professional life with your family life? Cause you have 3 boys, active boys. How do you balance that?
My wife would say not very well.
Yours too, huh?
No, and I don't, that was somewhat of a joke and somewhat of truth. So I, very blessed to have a wife who is not only supportive of me professionally, but also is willing to really step in ways when I can't. And I don't. That's a hard thing as a father and a man to really say. Is like the place where I feel like I'm failing my kids. So for us, it's most often it's the time commitment stuff. Because people see on the surface, what's there, but you don't get all the. When there's a power outage, when there's a electrical storm, when there's a threat of school violence, when there's it really does a number on you that way. But so how do I balance it? I have a wife who steps in a lot. I have a family beyond my wife too. Both of us are blessed with parents that, even though they don't live here, if tomorrow I needed to call my in-laws or my mom and say, hey, we really need help with this, they'd be in the car in a matter of minutes. And so that really helps. We have good friends that help or take things. My kids, obviously, they're most active in sports. And so, there's lots of times when we have to rely on others. And it doesn't always feel all that great, but just to say. But where I've really over time understood to be is, you support each other. And well, today, I may need to ask you for a ride to practice, or, hey, can you take him to that game? I know that, maybe next week we're going to trade favors and it'll be the same. And I think that's one of the things I love most about the families that we get a chance to interact with, because I think we all recognize, we're doing our best just to hold our shit together.
We're all in this shit together.
We're all in it together. Why are you late today? Well, we barely freaking got here, and it was a fight to get here. And Ding Dong in the back seat brought the wrong uniform. Yeah. So we had to turn around 3 times.
Been
to go
there, done that. A few times. And that's
so
real shit.
It's hard. The other thing that I've and I'm not always good at this, so this is something I have to remind myself from time to time, is sometimes I also just have to give myself permission to check out, to put the job on the shelf a little bit, and to say, okay, we're going to do this. And, I'm coming off of a time most recently, we were in just some things going on professionally and personally that over the Christmas holiday, we went to my parents' house, and I really took vacation time and just stayed away and unplugged. So I've got to be okay with doing that from time to time. My kids are pretty understanding, But I also, and you probably know this from having been on teams with my own kids, but
yes,
we're also everywhere.
Yeah.
So we don't, I don't want to misrepresent that we're always, constantly sending our kids, because we do put a lot of support in our kids. And, and we're actively involved parents, not only in sports, but in school and different things. And so they're, it is just when we had kids, it was one of the commitments that we really made. My wife, we are fortunate, and it doesn't come without sacrifice in other ways, but my wife is a stay-at-home mom. And so that has been a huge difference maker for us, is to have that flexibility. But it's hard sometimes. And I think probably the hardest part, and you guys have been there too, I know this. So when you have to make that choice between your two kids, like, okay, I can't be in two places at one time. So do I go to this one or to this one? Yeah. And neither of them feel like the right answer. Yeah. And so we do a lot of kind of divide and conquer. Like, you go with that one, I'll go with this one. And
the next weekend,
we'll
vice
versa. And our kids get that. And honestly, there's times where they're like, can I go with mom? I don't want you to go. So, and I don't take it all that personally.
Yeah, that's funny.
We also, our kids are all, we've got, not only they're all a unique person, but they mesh really with us very differently. So my oldest is convinced that, his two brothers are the favorites, and he's just kind of the forgotten child.
Yes. I'd been down there.
My middle son is, everybody calls him my twin replica. Mason is, he thinks like I do.
Money Mace.
Like, he just,
does he favor you? Is that
oh, yeah. So, in fact, whenever he's in trouble, I think he gets referred to as Josh Jr. Go deal with your dad. Like, and then Camden is, he's the youngest, so he's a huge mama's boy. And so, in fact, even today, I was still at home when he was getting ready for school, and he came out of the bedroom. He's like, "You're not taking me to school, are you?" So, nope, mom is. So I, there's just, we kind of click and make it work. And it's, honestly, also, I think you also have to look at what things you don't necessarily do. And so, is our house pristine and clean and organized as we want? No, because we live a messy life.
Yeah.
And, is it, all the things, and I think everybody makes their own decisions. And so, I have family members who have kids, and they aren't necessarily, they have different family priorities, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I do ask for understanding, though, that what we've prioritized is important. I don't like the criticism about it. There's something, when you talk about wanting to throat punch someone, if somebody says to me like, "Oh, do you have your kids play baseball because you think they're going to be Major League Baseball players?" No, I don't.
But if they do, that'd be nice.
Yeah, if they do, that'd be nice. Like, they'll remember me. But it's like, okay, you don't really get this or understand this. And,
a lot of people don't get it.
And hey, let me tell you this. Like, if I went down and looked at I think there's a lot worse things for my kids to be involved in and do than us spend too much money and too much time on the road and too many dinners through a drive-through to be at a baseball tournament or a basketball tournament or a wrestling match that about did me in. But just those things they're worth it in the end. And,
you know what, Josh, and the one thing that I get from, because we've done this a lot of years, right, is my oldest boy.
Yeah, you're old. Wait, I'm the old one.
But I know my oldest boy. I'm sure you've probably heard it, and you're probably already hearing it from your kids. Like little Derek, who's 23. Like he'll the trips, not even the games anymore. Like, and they won the games, they won tournaments, but it was the trips. It was the hanging out in the hotel room with the friends. It was the swimming. It was hanging out at the mall after games. Those are the things that they remember the most. Those memories. Of course, you get all the lessons you learn in sports, but those memories are lifetime memories. It
reminds me. So my oldest Hayden, baseball has always been his first love, and he does a few other things. But so I'll vividly remember this because he played tournament baseball starting as an 8-year-old, and so he was an 8-year-old on a 9-year-old team here locally, and they weren't very good. They were terrible, but they had a lot of fun, and I'll never forget because all the families were in a hotel, and we go, and I think they had this game. They lost in, I think, 4 innings, like 26-0 or something. And
that was a good one.
Yeah, and so we get back, and the kids are playing. And I remember Hayden looks, he's like, hey, did we win? No, not even close. Like nobody even got a hit, to be real honest.
He was having a blast.
But the reminder is like, that's not what it's about for them. You know, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, and they love it when they get a win and they get a championship or all those things. And it's been awesome to see that and watch their hard work pay off in that way. But they get a lot more out of it than just walking away with the tournament T-shirt.
I think if parents can take a step back, take a step back and reflect like that, you're right.
Yeah, there was a kid that I coached. We was years. I was when we first started coaching football, and I seen him. You know, he was like, "Hey, Coach T," and I was like, "Hey, how's it going? How's it going?" I forgot his name. He was like, "Man," and we talked. He was like, "We had a great kids." He was like, "Man, I remember you yelled at me, but you were right, Coach. I deserve that, you know. And when you told me that, I learned not to do something." And I was like, "Man, that's awesome, man." So it's these building blocks that the community can help you better yourself. It's not about the win. No. It's not about the loss. It's the building blocks that come with it, you know.
A lot of lessons, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all seen it. I mean, I think we've all probably had a moment in some sort of athletic event or contest or whatever where your own kid really screws up. And I'm not talking like made a bad play or swung on a ball they shouldn't have. I'm talking about, you know, really was just a
bonehead
moment. Yeah. I'm like, and those are great learning moments. As painful as it is, and you want to crawl underneath the bleachers and like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I don't want to. But those are opportunities to really build young men and women, and so we see the value in that. Plus, both my wife and I like it, so it's easy to find that balance when you're doing things that you're happy with. And so
there was a time we were coaching great kids, just to where my kid did something in the game, whatnot, and I went out there and I grabbed my kid, whatnot, and Josh, you were on the team with the team, and then some pregnant woman came out.
Oh God, I remember.
And you grabbed your son, and then I was just like, whatever. Later, then I left, and I was like, fuck, I don't think I should have grabbed my kid. And then at the end of the deal, I apologized to the parents, and I looked at Josh, and Josh was like, man, forget her, man. Just like, forget
it's because
the part of that story that you never know. Here's what was also happening. So I vividly remember that day because I don't think she just grabbed you. I think she was the crazy pregnant lady, like chasing you around the field, like yelling at you. But here's the kind of where my professional life kind of is. So I'm there as dad. You know, my kid was on the team. They were little, you know, out there, and I have, you know, while that's going on out on the field, and you're getting chased around by that lady. I have some of the other parents, you know, coming and finding me like, are you going to let him do that? Like, are you going to, like, what am I going to, am I the parenting, coaching police right now? Do you want me to go give him a spanking, or what am I supposed to do? And to be honest with you, like, I kind of agreed with him. So I'm not going to, so it's just, it's a funny thing because, well, you get it. And you know, is you are loud and you're yelling, but I'll tell you also as my own kid who actually, you know, Hayden's pretty soft for a lot of ways. He never once ever doubted for a second that you weren't doing that from a place of love, of care, of to making him a better athlete and a person. And, you know, sometimes I think there might have even been a little bit of internal laughter, like, oh, what crawled up his butt today? Like he's mad about something.
I'm the mad coach, but I remember saying, I was like, man, this pregnant chick, she's got a baby in her. And I was saying, I don't know, should I grab my kid like that? I remember telling fucking kid, you know. I
remember telling Courtney, I'm like, there's a pregnant lady on the field, like chasing I think,
I remember talking to parents. I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't have did that, but my kid was acting like a little sucker. I don't know what he was. I turned to Josh. Josh was like, psst. He looked at me, he was like, psst. Forget her. She's not raising our kids. And I was like, you're right, Josh.
I think people like if you look at Anthony, like if you just really watch you, bro, like I think most people can see like you're very stern and hard and loud, but I've never seen it not come from a good place. I think most people can sense that in general, right? But I think we live in such a hypersensitive time where you can't do anything these days, man. This is different times, man.
Do you think so? Okay. And not a lot, but we've been in different places and, you know, basketball tournaments and things. And I think, well, a lot of, especially like our own parents, like I never thought of one parent that was really anything but supportive of that.
Yeah.
But I think you probably get it a lot where the people are like, oh God, what's wrong with that crazy? You know, like you come across as the angry dad, like what's wrong with him? And so, but it's not, I guess, and that's part of that thing that it's like perception is so off because, you know, it's the people who know, you know, the parents, those kids, they're not out of sorts with it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they're not thinking like, why is that guy? And I'm not condoning violence to, you know, beat up kids. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is sometimes people need a stern
you got to
dealing with it. And they need to,
yeah.
And honestly, there's times that you've yelled at my own kid, and I think, well, good. Let him have a little bit more.
And but that's the thing is all the parents that I've coached with, they've always been cool. Like, hey man, he's all yours because what you're telling him is kind of like you're telling him the right thing, you know. Because when he leaves out here, somebody's going to tell him the same thing. It's not going to hurt his feelings because Coach Anthony told him, hey.
I thought you were going to bring up the basketball tournament when the mom got kicked out from our team.
We've had a few.
Oh,
okay, I remember.
Was it Erica?
Yeah.
We've had a few of those happen over the years.
We had. Hey, my wife, man, she stormed the court one year. Yeah, she went out there. And
well, my own wife will not admit it because she'd say she's embarrassed. But there was a different time in Fredo, not that tournament, but a different one, where she got a little heated.
I think I remember that one.
She was yelling, and I remember because I was over the scores table, and I thought, she better shut up or she's going to get tossed out of here, and I'm not coming to her rescue. Let's just be clear.
Who is that woman? Who is that?
And I don't think, you know, I'm not condoning or saying that, you know, being those crazy parents that you see like on Dateline and stuff. That's not what I'm, you know, that's just nuts.
That's too much.
But I think we've all seen things in places where there's just some real injustices of what and how kids are treated, how they're, you know, there's some perceptions of, you know, what the team is or what they bring or, you know, how they are. And it's like, that's crap, you know, and it's unfortunate, but I guess it's part of the learning from it too, is that you're going to roll into a place and this group of officials who are human also are going to have a perception of you as a team, and it may not be valid or accurate, but
and it's good for the kids, even though we
even though you may hate it in the moment, but
I think like the best moments of like my kids in sports is when they failed.
Yep.
I mean, the game's on the line. They're, I'm going to do this, and they lose. And I'm like looking at them like, hey, man, this is, at least you learned this from a sports event.
Yep.
You know, now get ready, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, get ready.
Yeah, it's also, it's good to watch them struggle, but also to kind of deal with their crap and figure out what's next and what's around the corner and how do they get behind that. You know, is this, you know, do you struggle to a point where you throw on the towel and say, this sport's not for me? And, or do you say, you know, we got to get better at this, or, you know, we're going to continue to
get some of that fight, some of that toughness. So I got a couple questions for you because we'll kind of wind down. I want to be respectful of your time, Josh. It's late. So one was, what is your passions, which I think we may kind of know after this conversation, outside of your profession? Right. What are you passionate about outside?
Yeah, Josh. He has his computer everywhere he goes. He's on.
It's right over there.
Yeah. I mean, you keep looking at it too. Like, fuck, I know there's something.
We all got to have that thing outside of work, like a dream, a passion, or whatever, you know.
There's a few things, and that, you know, I don't necessarily have a lot of, you know, quote, spare time to have what I would say like hobbies. You know, some people will say, "Oh, I love to golf or go fishing or camping or whatever." I hate camping; it sucks. But, you know, there's a few things that are really my time that I enjoy a lot. You know, I'm a longtime loyal Cougar football fan. Have season tickets through the good, bad, the ugly. For nothing else, it's like my little weekend escape sometimes to go watch a Cougar game and get away. It's really stunk this year not having it.
Yeah.
We do a lot of family things. We like to, you know, go on family vacations and things. I actually, and this is, some of my buddies know this, but we really are a family that loves like games and card games and especially cards. And I you know, love to go places that are, you know, the Vegas and Palm Springs and Phoenix. And
you're a card guy?
I love, I love, well, before when you were talking about the casino, I was thinking, oh God, yeah, that sounds really fun right now. You're killing me.
You're a Texas guy? You like Texas?
No, it's too, no, I like to play the Pai-Gow poker, which is crazy because it's kind of a slow paced game, but I love it because you can play for a long time. But so does my wife actually. I'm trying to think what else. You know, we recently moved, and it kind of came at a perfect time. And so we live in a house that maybe fits, some things that we wanted to do. So some days we're good with being homebodies. Something I love the most is not having anything to do. I haven't always been that way in life. I just drive my parents crazy about, I'm bored. What are we going to do? Can we go somewhere? And now it's like I would give anything to have a weekend where you can just kind of chill and not do anything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. I also, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
It's all right.
There's other things that, you enjoy, but they're not necessarily big overarching stuff.
Yeah.
And just the age that our kids are right now, it also doesn't feel like there's not a lot of spare time.
I was going to say your passions are probably just the kids, like really, because they consume
My passions
a lot
are
of time.
Holiday Inn Expresses. And,
That's what I'm talking about.
Starbucks with drive-thrus on the way to a game. So, yeah.
So my other question was we talked about the keyboard warriors a little bit. So do you ever know who they are at times if they're not using an anonymous name? Do you ever run across them in town where you guys make eye contact, and is it do you make
That's
eye
a crazy question,
do you make
bro.
eye contact, or you ignore them?
Yeah. Here's the thing. This is one of the places where Moses Lake, being a smaller community, 9 times out of 10, the keyboard warrior is somebody who I know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know them well, obviously, and they don't know me well, obviously, but it's a name and a face that I recognize or maybe have had an experience with. And so, yes, I think that kind of personalizes a little bit. And if I have had opportunities to cross that path in Walmart or whatever, and, I'm human. And so there's times when I think, oh man, really, what's the luck of that? I will tell you, though, those that I have had to have any sort of, lengthy interaction with, or any sort of, it's kind of forced, is usually I find those same people are not nearly as brave and outspoken in person as they are, behind it. And that's why the kind of the keyboard warrior thing comes in. I'm not an aggressive person, so I don't come after them. I argue with them. But a skill I use a lot is kind of kill people with kindness. And, I'm not going to drop to your level. I do take a little satisfaction of just, looking them in the eye, and they know that, the horrible things that they said about me as a person. So,
I know you
now,
know.
Now there have been times, not so flattering moments, where, maybe you drop a sarcastic comment back about that, or, I had somebody who they were a person out of my life at one point, who I considered a friend, and that person kind of started posting some things, and it was all in reference to, my salary. Mm-hmm. And I came in contact with them, and at a different time, and we actually ended up being down at Michael's, and I thought, I'm gonna have a little fun with this.
Yeah.
So I sent a drink to her table, and I said, "You can thank my salary for that drink." And so she wanted to crawl under the table, because it kind of keeps it in perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't.
There you go. Man.
You don't. Okay, you can take the jab at that. That's fine, but I know you're going to drink that free drink you just got.
Yeah.
So it's just, there have been no times, but I'm not, overly, confrontational. I have had, there has been times when, it's gotten so bad to even have, law enforcement involved, because they're more threats than just rude comments.
Wow.
I think someone was going to come beat me up or slash, or, and I've had my tires slashed. That was a really neat day.
The hell up.
Actually, they weren't slashed. I take that back. They were.
They just knocked.
Someone drove. This is crazy. It's actually still on video, but this was years ago. But I was parked at Moses Lake High School, and someone was mad and knew which car was mine, and they went and got these 4 big pegs and drove them in each of the 4 tires. So I went out there after work, and the car's all sitting on 4 flat tires.
Are you fucking kidding me, man?
Moral of the story is they didn't get what they wanted. So, yeah. So it's I mean, yes and no. It hasn't been overly.
I'm just curious because like you said, we live in a small town, so it's I'm gonna run across you somewhere, and is that awkward yeah.
And again, most of the time, I think honestly, I sense sometimes even some embarrassment on their part.
I'm sure.
Oh God, I wish I wouldn't have said that.
I have to watch.
And I'm human too, so I know. I've said things that I wish I didn't say.
Yeah.
I also, I'm a pretty understanding person that it would go a long ways for me if somebody had that life moment to say, hey, I'm really sorry about that. Like, I didn't mean to, because I know emotions take over in people, and they, and one thing social media has really done for us as people is you don't have to think at all. You can just start typing and saying whatever. And so I understand that for sometimes, they post things and then delete them, or they wish they would have deleted them, or maybe they should have deleted them. But, I get it. I just, honestly, I think if we all owned up to our own errors and omissions and mistakes, it would really help, not be at each other's throat all the time about such an ugly world, because people are going to make mistakes. You're going to have a misjudgment. You're not going to always see things exactly how you maybe perceive them to be, but that doesn't mean you can't learn from it. So.
I agree wholeheartedly. You got anything else, Aunt Banks?
Man, that's good, man.
You got nothing else, huh? Yeah? Well, I appreciate you, Josh, taking the time and doing this, man. I think this is really, really cool for people to hear a little more about your story, obviously, man, because they just see the face. They don't see everything behind.
Bald head.
I appreciate you coming on, man. I do. I mean, we're Moses Lake bound, man, and coming on here dealing with all these crazy motherfuckers. I'm just glad you came on, man.
Thank you for the.
I get to go home. You're like, oh shit,
Thank you for the invitation. I think I've both over the years told you in your own ways, but one of the things I value very greatly is the impact that other people have on the lives of my own kids and family, and both of you have walked that path at some point, and both Courtney and I are very appreciative of that. Not only for it's not just about the coaching or that, but just the being there in those times, and also I part of the joy that our kids have. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I appreciate that, man. And one thing I think about too, as you close out, is like I believe people cross paths for a reason, nothing by accident. It's always on purpose, man. And it's just, I always reflect sometimes and think like, it's funny how some things just work out, and relationships that are built and things, and it's just cool, man. Right. So
I agree, because those relationships may not be for us right now, but you never know. 10, 15, 30, 40 years from now, our kids may cross. It's bound to happen. For things happen for a reason.
I actually remember that a little bit. The very first time Hayden ever ended up on one of your teams, he was just kind of randomly assigned there, and I didn't really know you. I actually had met little Derek in school, but I didn't know you at all. And then it's kind of funny now to think about that. Like, what's the random chance of that? And so it's cool. I think it's what makes life. It's some joy in it to come in contact with people you wouldn't necessarily. So
Thank you, man.
I agree.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
You too.
Appreciate you, Josh. This is The Lab, episode 25. Our good friend, Dr. Josh Meek. Appreciate you guys. Peace.
See ya.